Here's Brody Brazil.
You know, this topic has been brewing in my mind now for the last couple weeks and months, but with the A's and Padres meeting this past weekend, I feel it's time to make this video, to make this statement, as San Diego fans are starting to point the finger. I mean, it's going to be a rough offseason in SoCal. Time to play the blame game. Who's at fault for the Padres and all these expectations? Should have been a playoff team, should have been a World Series, at least contending team. They didn't even make the playoffs, or at least they're about to not make the playoffs, most likely here in 2023. So Padres fans are already starting to say, well, whose fault is this? What changes do we need to make? Basically, we need to get this off our chest. And I've got to tell you, I hate making this video, and I hate this for the Padres. I truly hope you understand. I root for these guys. I'm on their side. This is a team and a franchise that went all in on star players, committed a huge amount of money. Now, maybe a little bit irresponsibly or not in the most prudent ways. We'll talk about that in just a second. But at least they made that commitment to their fan base, to their players, and to their team. They went all in. It's a great town. For whatever reason, I've been to San Diego like 4 or 5 times within the last 12 months alone, various different things. But I love every trip to San Diego. Obviously, I love California, but San Diego is such a cool spot. They've got great fans. They've got a great ballpark, Petco, right near the gas lamp, right downtown. Everything's so close. You can feel the energy. You can feel the vibe when you're down there. And the fans show up and show out. Literally in baseball, you've got a New York team and an LA team, 1 and 2 in overall average attendance per game. Number 3 are the San Diego Padres. Those fans in San Diego, they show up. And I love it. And even despite turmoil and tension and this season of unraveling, they have shown up. And in my opinion, they brought in the right manager and the right coaching staff to cohesively bring this team together. Now, that has not happened. We'll also discuss that in a second. But I hate all of this mix, which has all added up to that equation of an 85% playoff chance at the beginning of this season. Second highest in baseball. The only team with a higher chance to make the playoffs, according to Fangraphs, was Atlanta. Guess what? They're definitely in. Guess what? San Diego, most likely not in, even with that 85% playoff chance that they had. So all that as kind of the backstory here, and we'll also dissect how and why they've struggled in a second, but I want to share with you a clip from our pregame show. I think this was on Saturday. I also posted this on social media. It got a lot of angry response from some Padres fans.
Can I just talk to him for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
If your team is struggling and you've got star players and even Bob Melvin can't fix your team, nobody else can fix your team. This is not Bob Melvin's fault.
No, it's not Bob Melvin's fault.
Biff was like, what is he doing right there? Why is he getting so close to the camera? Well, over the weekend, and I think this came out on Friday in the San Diego Union Tribune, an article by one of the Padres beat writers went in like this. For whatever else needs to be fixed heading into 2024, the most important thing would be their best players performing better on the field. Things are lacking in the Padres clubhouse. And kind of the sub-headline there was, as Padres season spirals, questions emerge about culture, cohesion, and chemistry. Yeah, so there are some uneasy feelings and some tension in San Diego now that they're realizing how this year is going to play out. And that's no surprise. But I would also suggest to you, sometimes in sports, this happens. When you try and buy your way into something, it doesn't always work out how you want. Even when you do it in an organic way, it doesn't always work out. That's why sports are something we love. There's a human element of it. It doesn't always follow the script we think. Okay, so where did the Padres fail this season? Before we start talking about pointing the finger and blame and who I'm taking out of the blame, Bob Melvin, which you've already seen there. By the way, Padres fans were telling me, on social, oh, do you watch baseball? Do you know anything about this team? Bob Melvin falls asleep in the dugout. Yeah, no. I know more about Bob Melvin after 11 years of being here than you probably have seen in him in the last 2 years, or maybe even watched Padres baseball, but I digress. Where the Padres have failed this season, they've never got on a collective roll. Their best record a long time ago was only 3 games over 500. Their best win streak at the time I'm recording this, 3 straight wins. That's it. Even the Oakland A's had a 7-game win streak earlier this year, and also a 4-gamer later on. 3 straight wins. They never got on any kind of heater. In one-run games, a 6-26 record? That's not a Bob Melvin team. All the walk-offs, all the close games, the nail-biters. The Padres have just 1 walk-off. Even the A's this year have 7 or 8. And they've only got 40-something total wins, like 20-something home wins. The Padres are 0-11 in extra inning games. They've blown 34 leads, a .241 team batting average, and most frustratingly for them, they hit .239 as a team with runners in scoring position. So if you're asking, well, how did they fail? Yeah, you should know all this stuff so you can start to figure out, okay, how do we dissect this? Because there's 3 pillars, maybe of potential blame. A.J. Preller, top left. He's the team's president of baseball operations and general manager. Bob Melvin, top right. Managed a handful of teams, manager of the year multiple times. His track record should speak for itself. And then you've got all the players. Tatis, Machado, Bogarts. You could go on and on. Soto, who they brought in. I mean, they keep acquiring players and paying for them. You're wondering, how are they even able to do this? They've never gone in like this before, but it's just what they're capable of doing. But back to the groups here. Where do you start to point the finger? Is it not the right makeup of players? So we blame the front office? Is it on the dugout and the field manager to get his team together over and over again in the clubhouse? Or are we talking about, well, you paid for very expensive players and they should have some leadership and some abilities to bring this group to where they want to be? The criticisms externally, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm on the inside or like I have insight into watching the Padres this year. I pay attention. I watch their scores. I'm certainly not around them, but it does seem like outside looking in, they're a group of individuals. They're not really a team. And I know the finger might be pointed and say, well, the manager's job is to get players together. It's like if you spend that much on an expensive car, you shouldn't be taking it in for service over and over again. You're supposed to get what you paid for. Now, again, in sports, there's the human element. Obviously, sometimes players have bad seasons. It just doesn't work out. It just so happens that the Padres' star players, and that's really where we can kind of narrow it down. I don't know that it's the entire roster. We're looking at their star core of players, and none of them are having an exceptional season. You kind of can't even exclude any single star player out of the focus here because none of them are playing their heads off and escaping this conversation. They're all in it too. So I'm not even going to suggest here where to point the blame. To be honest, maybe it's a little bit of everywhere. Maybe a little bit here, a little bit there. Probably, in my opinion, most on the players who actually control and dictate outcomes and results. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's hard for me to keep my finger pointed at Bob Melvin for any length of time. And it's not just because of a long relationship I've had with him and a friendship and an understanding of how he operates. But yeah, I mean, part of it is that Bob Melvin has the most track record at the job he's doing, managing a big league team, and the most experience of anybody in San Diego. Bob's been managing since most of his players were in Little League. And A.J. Preller has been around this for a while, but not doing his job as long as Bo Mel has. And I'm also not here to say that job, tenure, and experience means everything, but in this case, track record does mean something here. Bo Mel's under contract through next season, and I'm interested to see what they do with him. They kept the team intact. They had the trade deadline. They had the ability to move some players. We'll see what they do this offseason. But it does kind of seem and feel like the Padres have already adopted the mentality at this point that they might roll the dice on this same group next year. And I honestly don't think it's their worst. I don't know if it's their worst choice to do that. Will this offseason humble them? Will not making the playoffs humble this group? Will that be something to kick them together? If that doesn't work, I don't know what will work. But I will say this, if the Padres decide to move on without Bob Melvin, it's only because that's the easiest move to make. If like a wall is falling down, we'll repaint it. Yeah, I mean, I think you need to do some structural work here. No, we'll just repaint it for now. We'll give it a different look and see if that makes it feel different. Okay. It's so much easier for a big league team to let go of their manager and some of their coaching staff rather than trade a player. That's a hard move because then the trade may or may not work out for you. Changing managers and changing head coaches in sports is one of the easiest things to do when your team is not realizing its potential. But I'm here to tell you that, in my opinion, that's the wrong move. That's pointing the finger at the wrong person. But if they do it, that's the reason why they did it, because it's easy. So, again, I hate to see this for the Padres. I wished better. Quite honestly, I kind of adopted them this year as the National League team I wanted to pull for. And, wow, it was pretty clear. Like, they went on a run in late April into early May, but after that, I mean, they just never, ever, ever got it together this season. And lately, they've been shutting down pitchers, Musgrove and Darvish, and Manny's been out with the elbow, and Bogart's foul one off his knee the other day, his calf. I mean, they are just now literally limping to the end, and they'll be lucky to even have a 500 record at this point, let alone the playoff race, which is pretty much out of hand. So you made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll help me out. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so I can definitely see you back here next time.